Hello and welcome. I'm Caroline Gaskin and I'm a natural health practitioner. And my focus for much of my work is balancing your hormones. And I work quite a lot with menopause as well. And I wanted to talk today about hormones and weight. And that can go either way. For some women into menopause, they find that they lose weight, they lose muscle tone, but it's much more common that we gain weight and that we struggle with our weight in relation to our hormones. And we might have seen that much earlier in our life if we've been on the birth control pill. And, often with women, I ask them, how was the pill for you? And they'll say, oh, I didn't like it, I gained weight, or I was moody. And so that gives me an idea of what that is going to happen at menopause, that another time of hormonal change. So when a woman comes to see me, we might be taking the whole health history, going right back, peeling back the layers, right back to when our period started and how it was for us as we began to go into our fertile journey. And for some of you, you might be battled with fertility and not achieved goals, like having babies. For other women, you might have been very fertile, and that's been a different type of battle. But as we come into fertility, it's a hormone called estrogen that triggers the whole thing. And estrogen is supposed to be dominant in the first half of our menstrual cycle, and second half progesterone kicks in. So it's a conversation between these two hormones. And essentially, if we have too much estrogen, that contributes massively to weight gain. And even though estrogen is dropping off at menopause, what actually seems to happen is that we get a magnification of the effects of synthetic estrogens that we've had in our lives. So, and this is borne out with studies. We look at stuff like DES, which is a particular type of synthetic hormones, which was in our timeline. Often our mothers had taken it. They might have taken it during their own pregnancies. They might have had it as part of a birth control schedule. And the effect of that can be cumulative over time. And what that means is when we get the stimulation of more hormones at menopause, as we go into perimenopause, and the pituitary gland stimulates it's called follicle stimulating hormone, we get more of that to complete a cycle to try to have another baby, because we're pretty primed towards being fertile or trying to be fertile. That follicle stimulating hormone ramps up as we move into menopause, and that extra kind of dollop of hormones can trigger latent synthetic hormones like DES in the system to create problems. So we can have a picture which is kind of magnified estrogen. So it's like our natural estrogen drops off and we can get this synthetic picture, which causes all sorts of problems for us. So many women, as their hormones begin to change, find that they get more bloated, more uncomfortable before their periods, or they gain weight slowly over time. And really, that progesterone that should kick in the second half of our cycle helps us create lean muscle. It helps us lose weight. It helps us feel good, think more clearly. We have progesterone receptor sites, for instance, in the brain. We also have estrogen receptor sites in the brain, but particularly the progesterone receptor sites, if they're not operating fully, then we can suffer things like brain fog. So we need a balance between these two hormones, even if we don't need as much of them beyond menopause. We still need these hormones to function in all sorts of ways. And that imbalance causes problems. And the role of estrogen is to make us have enough fat on our bodies to maintain a healthy pregnancy. So if you think back to times when we simply didn't have enough food and we were going through feast or famine, depending on what time of year it was. We go right back to cave dwelling times, which wasn't really so long ago in evolutionary terms. Our bodies are looking to have enough weight on them in order to conserve the species. So we have to carry enough weight to make a baby, and that that the trigger for that is in estrogen. So how do we create balance? How do we lose weight if we find that we're slowly gaining it and we're struggling? Interestingly, one of the things we can do is to increase fats in our diet. So this is a big tub of coconut oil. We could be rubbing a small amount of that onto the adrenal glands that are at the back of the waist, onto the thyroid gland, and taking it as part of our food, so we can increase fats in other ways. If we, from the animal kingdom, we can have fatty meat, oily fish. If we don't, then we can look to cold pressed seed oils, we can look to avocados. And in fact, we can balance issues, hormonal issues, using cold pressed seed oils. So the right kind of oils like flaxseed or evening primrose oil can help balance our cycle. So women definitely need more fats, and I find that women in general need to add things into their life rather than just take them away, because we can think, oh, I've got weight on me, I need to take something away, where in fact often what we need to do is to add in things like essential fatty acids. Magnesium can help because that helps balance our blood sugar. So we could take that in the form of an Epsom salt bath, or better use spray oil. We use these on the skin dermally, or we could do a supplement of some sort. And there are various magnesiums as supplements that we can take. And increasingly there are better ones on the market than there used to be. So I didn't used to recommend magnesium as a supplement hardly at all. Perhaps a magnesium powder before bedtime if you're finding it difficult to get to sleep. But luckily there are some better digested, better absorbed magnesium supplements. Because one of the problems with a lot of mainstream supplements is that they have fillers and binders in them, which interfere with your digestive process. So if you're struggling to digest those supplements, that can create, all sorts of problems in the digestive system. So I see people who have very poor digestion as a result of taking supplements that aren't very good quality. So that can happen, and so I'm a real stickler for the quality of supplements, and try to look to food state supplements. So if you're buying supplements, go for brands like Wild Nutrition or Terra Nova, perhaps Viridian, that are plant sourced and haven't got a lot in the way of fillers and binders in them. So what that means is that the supplements tend to be more expensive, because the point of fillers and binders is to fill the capsule faster, so the company can get away with a faster manufacturing process and therefore keep the costs down. What that does is it affects the quality of your supplement. So I tend to go to supplements where I've read the label and I've looked at the amount of fillers and binders in them. So I've talked a little bit there about absorption. If you're suffering from bloating and discomfort, and that is getting worse before your periods, there can be all sorts of reasons for that. And it could be that you need to enhance the gut flora. So that's increasing fermented foods in your diet, perhaps taking probiotics, so that you metabolize your food, you absorb your food more efficiently. But bloating and discomfort can also be because you are eating your food too fast, or you're not, in which case you're not chewing your food and you're not producing the digestive enzymes in the mouth that help you metabolize, if you like, the top end of your digestive system. So digestive enzymes are things like lactase, protease, amylase, lipase. They all help you digest different types of food. So lipase, lipids are fats, helps you digest fats. Protease helps you digest proteins. It's pretty much in the name. Cellulase helps you digest cellulose. So digestive enzymes are what is sometimes called prebiotics, and they're like the top end of the digestive system. And we should either be taking these in through the foods that we eat that help initiate the digestive process. So foods like artichokes, asparagus, for instance, radicchio, radishes, they help initiate us producing our own digestive enzymes. We might have bromelains or that come from things like pineapple, papain from papaya. There are certain foods that we eat that provide us with digestive enzymes that stimulate that beginning of the digestive process. Or we can take a prebiotic or a digestive enzyme that has these in specifically. And it might be that you have problems digesting certain types of food, and that certainly is common in menopause. And I see that women can become intolerant to dairy or gluten where they were able to tolerate those before. So sometimes that can help simply to avoid those foods, or it might be that you introduce something like digestive enzymes or a particular food that helps you diversify the gut flora so that you can absorb those food types. So the amylases, for instance, might help us digest starches efficiently. Or we might use herbs, like there's an Indian herb called asafoetida that you'll find used in, it's a spice really, that you'll find used in vegetarian Indian food because it helps digest complex starches. Or we might take amylase as a supplement. Certainly, chewing your food efficiently will help your body produce its natural amylases. So, if you're struggling with starchy foods, potatoes, rice, bread, etc., it could be that your body is not producing or you're not eating foods which encourage that particular type of digestive enzyme. So, dairy, for instance, we need a digestive enzyme called lactase. So you can get products which have just those in, so it's a prebiotic or a digestive enzyme, the focus of which is to help you digest dairy or to digest gluten. Interestingly, you can add in fermented foods, particularly kefir, which is proven to help you digest the milk products more efficiently, dairy products more efficiently. So it's common for women to develop dietary sensitivities through menopause because of this kind of change in hormones. Um, and and that can be addressed by changing the foods that we eat, particularly diversifying the gut flora. Um, Another thing that I sometimes encourage women to do is a food intolerance test, and they can be pretty good. And it's called it's an IgI test. So it's a blood test, and they're very easy to get hold of. And a decent one of those should do about 200 different food types and give you an idea of what you can and can't digest. So for myself, I did that test, food intolerance test, with a company called York Tests. I can put a code in below so you can get a discount. And I discovered that I don't digest chickpeas very well, and I don't digest beef very well. So it might be that when I eat beef, I would make sure that I have some digestive enzymes with a protease in, or that I eat foods that help my body digest proteins more efficiently. I don't eat beef very often, and it was only really through menopause that I started to eat animal proteins in a more comprehensive way. So I hadn't eaten meat for many, many, many years. And I kind of stopped eating fish because of all the toxicity that's in fish. And I sort of dropped back to a kind of fairly vegan diet, but it really didn't suit me because my thyroid was struggling to metabolize proteins. So I had to kind of eat more regularly when it came to proteins. And I started to eat eggs a little bit more often. At that point, I was eating fish, or I chose to eat fish once, perhaps twice a week. was very careful about where I sourced it from. And eventually, at some point, pretty much towards the end of menopause, I think, I started to eat a small amount of meat. So I don't eat meat very often, but I'm more likely to eat a small amount of meat now, and very, very occasionally eat fish. And that is fine. So there are adjustments to make as we go through menopause, particularly, and out the other side, you should have a kind of more balanced perspective. A big thing about weight gain that I find a lot of women need to do, particularly if their hormones are changing, is to make sure that you eat breakfast and to make sure that breakfast has some kind of fiber in it. And that fiber will help draw down any excess cortisol. I've talked about this before in this space, but it's really important because if we are producing a lot of cortisol through stress, anxiety, and stress can be from not eating regularly, then our body thinks that we're in a dangerous place. It sees that sort of semi-starvation, that fasting, or it can do at menopause, as being potentially dangerous for us. So it's like we pump out more cortisol because we feel like we're under threat. And one of the actions of cortisol is to make sure that we hold on to weight just in case. We might be going into lean times. So our body can't really differentiate between lean times, and a perceived threat. It just sort of treats it all in the same way and pumps out cortisol to deal with this stress, whatever the stress is. And so for many women, they find that they gain weight under stress. So grounding practices, breath work has got such a great role in balancing your hormones and in fact ultimately in losing weight. So yeah, that first thing in the morning, making sure that you eat something that has some kind of fiber in can make a difference. And it could be a supplemental fiber. So it could be something like ground hemp seed, um, uh, oats. There's all sorts of things that we can kind of eat, and we don't have to eat a lot of it. It's just that cortisol that gets us up and out of bed in the morning. If that's still hanging around at 11 o'clock in the morning, we're going to feel stressed, we're going to feel anxious. Ideally, we'd have had some breakfast a little bit earlier, and that would have kind of anchored, drawn down the cortisol, so we can get on with the rest of our day. And I find that is quite a fundamental thing for women going through hormonal change, that their blood sugar can be a bit unstable, and eating regularly, eating the right food, and certainly not snacking on crisps and chocolate and chips and all the things that we're driven to. So if you find that you're craving fatty, salty food, often what needs to happen is that we need to increase the good quality fats in our diet, and we need to make sure that we're having good quality salt as well. So by that I mean things like a good quality sea salt, or perhaps Himalayan salt, and definitely not a bog standard table salt. You definitely want to ditch that from your kitchen and have something like a grey sea salt, Celtic sea salt, that kind of thing, as in your diet, because salt is a great source of minerals. And without the right minerals, we'll be hunting for those from our food as well. So a lot of craving for carbohydrates is us wanting food which sustains us for longer. But of course, carbohydrates like bread, rice, potatoes, they're what I call crash and burn carbs. We need to tune into the brightly coloured root vegetables. So carrots, swede, turnip, parsnip. These are much more grounding for us, and they're what we call low glycemic index. So they keep us sustained for longer. So at this time of winter, of year, as we go, rather autumn, as we're going into the winter, it can really stand us in good stead to use a nice broth, and to add in root vegetables, and to learn to make a nicely flavored root vegetable soup, for instance. and to roast fruit vegetables in the oven. And you can put those into, you can put them into a salad with your radicchio and your rocket and these leaves that help us digest foods more efficiently. Perhaps add some feta cheese and a few lightly toasted seeds, and suddenly you've got a real meal for someone who's going through changing hormones, who's finding that weight gain is an issue. Oh, beetroot is the other one that I should add amongst those root vegetables. So roasted golden beetroot, roasted regular beetroot, something like lightly toasted pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds are really rich in great essential fatty acids and zinc. So you've got your roasted root vegetables, your lightly toasted pumpkin seeds, a little bit of feta cheese, and some lovely dark leafy greens. And you'll feel sustained for ages, and you'll be ticking all the boxes that you need for a well-balanced meal for a woman looking to lose weight and stay sustained, for a long period of time. You probably heard me talk about, and if you haven't, then I have got a YouTube clip on this. But skin brushing with a dry, natural bristle brush before your shower or your bath is a really great choice to add into your routine to encourage your body to rid itself of toxins efficiently and thereby lose weight. So what happens when you skin brush from the extremities towards the heart, whole of your skin, so ideally before you have your bath or your shower, and you want to brush all your skin, and that brush needs to be quite firm. And if you've ever groomed an animal, groomed a horse or brushed a dog, you'll know that they love that being brushed, and it after a while it feels great. It might take you a little while to get used to it, but brush your skin from the extremities towards the heart. And actually what you've got above the heart is two big lymph ducts. So your lymph system, unlike your blood, doesn't have a pump, and it relies on you walking, moving, jumping, bouncing, and when you're doing that, it will pump the detritus from your cells through the lymph system back to these big ducts above the heart, and then it will dump that everything that needs to be processed by the liver into the bloodstream, and it's carried to the liver. So we natural bristle brush, dry skin brush before a shower or a bath. So it's different to doing a loofah in the bath. And the difference in this arm that I've just brushed and this arm that I haven't is massive. So I'm just going to brush my right arm as well, because it feels great. It really stimulates the skin. And so it's getting rid of dead skin cells on my skin, but it's also really stimulating the whole of the skin, the outer dermis, the deeper epidermis, and encouraging that interstitial fluid to carry the debris through the lymph system back into the liver to be processed. And the other thing that we have is what are called leptin receptor sites just below the surface of the skin. And they are related to our capacity to gain weight or not. So leptin, formerly known as the skinny hormone, is what we need to encourage to do its work so that it processes and we metabolize food efficiently and we don't gain weight unnecessarily. There's another hormone called adiponectin, which we can encourage to work through eating green foods, particularly something like a super green shake, and then adding in something like your ground fiber, and that will really help the adiponectin work efficiently so that it doesn't switch on the capacity to gain weight. Another thing that's quite interesting is we have another which, if we don't get adequate sleep, our body thinks we're in a stressful state and it will switch on the capacity to gain weight. So it might be that if sleep is poor for you and you've got weight gain issues, that is the goal for you. How do I balance my sleep more efficiently? And it could be that something like the magnesium I mentioned earlier, you get to sleep, or increasing your melatonin naturally means that you stay asleep. And there are lots of ways to do that. I've talked about that, I think, in previous videos here. But it could be that you need to get out and see a bit of daylight before, early in the day, before 12. Take your walk at that time of day so that your melatonin starts off well at the beginning of the day. If you know you're somebody who doesn't see, oh, that's my phone going off. Just 1 minute. And that's a little task that I need to complete, and I've actually completed that already, so I'm quite pleased. Yeah, so if you know that you're somebody who doesn't really get to see much natural daylight because of your job and your schedule, try to factor in that 20 minutes walk in the morning before 12, if at all possible, so that your body is seeing natural light and is beginning to start the process of producing melatonin, so that by the end of the day, there's enough of that in your system to take you into sleep and through your sleep. If you find that you're sort of somebody who's waking at weird o'clock, there are lots of tools. I particularly like sour cherry juice, which is very easy to get hold of. And I'll put a link to that down below with a discount code. What worked for me was CBD oil. That was so post-menopausally, I was left with what I call wonky sleep. And CBD oil taken over 8 months just completely changed my sleep. And if I ever feel like a little bit wakeful, then I'll just take a little bit. I don't take it regularly now, but I might take it once a fortnight if I feel like I can't get to sleep or I feel particularly wakeful. All sorts of tips to help us get to sleep. But if we're not getting enough sleep, if we're not getting 7 to 8 hours as an adult a night, it could be that that's a factor in weight gain. So as you can hear, there's many things that can help us, bring down weight, lose weight, maintain a good body weight. Movement is certainly important. And if you know that you're somebody who's desk bound for long periods of time, then it is really important to learn to screen break. I'm somebody who's just as guilty as the next person of not taking screen breaks. And I did a wonderful chat actually recently with a friend. So I'm just going to slightly move the screen. And if I sit on the edge of my seat, I've just shown this the other day. Let's just move that a little bit further. I was just showing this the other day. I had a chat with a friend of mine, Lisa Knighton. And, she said every 25 minutes of your seat and stand up without holding the seat and sit down several times. So you're effectively doing a squat, standing up, and it feels great actually. So keep your knees and your feet and your hips in line. Stand up and down a few times, and you'll feel that you're working your thighs, your calves, the soles of your feet, your glutes, and your transverse and abdominal muscles as you stand up and down. So your transverses you'll use much more if you twist, but I can feel my abdominal muscles working really nicely as I do those squats up and down. And just that simple movement is going to be moving my lymph as well. So if you are desk bound, it needs to become a discipline. Otherwise, we just sit and gain weight, and that can have such a knock-on effect to digestion, all sorts of things. So I'm going to put a couple of links down below. I mentioned the cherry. I will put a link to a magnesium supplement that I quite like at the moment. and a nice source of Epsom salts as well. There is actually on the same site, there's a natural bristle brush that I can put a link to. But I've given you lots of tips. It's really about having a plan and seeing a difference. So if you know you're somebody who skips breakfast, it might be time to factor in, and it doesn't have to be a massive breakfast. You know, I don't sit down and eat a big breakfast. I might do something like this morning, I had literally half a pink grapefruit chopped, and I lightly toasted some pumpkin seeds to have on the top of that. That is enough fiber for me to just bring down that cortisol that's got me up and out of bed. So, you know, there's so many resources, but it does require making some changes from the kind of diet that most of us were eating in our 20s and 30s and could get away with. And I know you've got lots and lots of dietary tips in this space, and there's some really great handouts. So hopefully a little bit of what I've been talking about today is a good reminder to go back to some of those PDFs if you are struggling with weight and finding that, you know, that sort of sense you're not getting anywhere. I did mention women who lose weight through lose muscle through hormonal change. And they're, you know, metabolize protein. So there's something about the protein metabolism which has become deficient. It is slightly harder to correct. But I do work with some tremendous supplements. So if that sounds like you, drop me a line personally and I can point you in the right direction. It's a much smaller percentage of women that suffer from that. But what it shows us is that the testosterone is really low. We still, as women, need some testosterone. And actually, in weight gain in general, there could be an issue around testosterone or a lack of that. You know, testosterone is about our drive. It's about our ambition. It's about our desire to go out and get that. And, you know, so if you're feeling like you haven't got that, it could be that testosterone's a bit low for you. And we definitely don't talk about that enough in the UK. And it doesn't mean to say that we need to go and get supplemental testosterone. There are incredible, I mean that as a synthetic hormone. There are incredible foods that can help. There are certainly superfoods that can help. I love my homeopathic remedies. And oh, just one last thing that I did bring in. It's not homeopathic, but it's one of the bush flower essences. For weight gain, the purifying essence can be good. And it, in fact, has only 4 of the bush flower essences in, I think. Oh no, maybe it's got a few more in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, it has 6 in. And it has one in called Wild Potato Bush. It's fantastic flower essence for feeling heavy, for feeling encumbered. So the purifying essence, very easy to get hold of. I'll put a link actually down below for that as well. Just take 7 drops day and night for easily for a month as part of a kind of cleanup routine. It's super. So I'm going to end that there and actually go and have a little bit to eat because I'm hungry. And what have I got to eat? I'm actually going to eat some fish today. So I've got some wild salmon. I have some salad leaves. I have some tomatoes. I'm going to eat some cabbage because cabbage for me helps me scavenge excess estrogen. So I'm really trying to eat a little bit of cabbage every day because I don't have, it's in my DNA profile. I have a genetic predisposition to not processing estrogen particularly well. So it took me a long time to find that out, but eating a little bit of cabbage helps. So I hope there's something useful in there, and I will add a little bit below for you to explore. Have a good evening. And if you're watching this on replay, hashtag replay, please. Okay. Lots of love to you all. Bye.